So welcome back, everybody. This is Paul again from 2012crossing.com, and I've been talking a lot about 2012 this year, obviously, and for a number of years previously to this. And we got into discussion with people who commented on videos and other videos that I've watched and stuff that I've read and heard about, that there needs to be a conversation about what so-called esoteric science and so-called real modern science and so-called pseudoscience is. And I've been making a series about astrology for skeptics and cosmology and so on, and just putting my 2 cents in here. I'm not saying I'm really an absolute expert, but here's something for thought here. And I'm going to make a series again about numbers. Now, if you look back in history, the idea of just real basic numbers, the simple numbers that we call the real numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all those numbers were really, really important in all kinds of architecture and symbology and religion for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, because they so-called mean something, and the whole reason that they developed symbols was partly because of trade. They needed to trade, but they had to represent something. And what is trade? Is based on commerce and interaction and their weights and balances and so on. And some of the ancient teachings about math were really not, you don't use them every day for general trade and commerce. But there's other aspects about mathematics and symbology that someone who spends a lot of time thinking about and reading about, study, you'll find that besides the real basic numbers that we know about from the so-called Pythagorean theorem and so on, there are so many profound different types of mathematics that have been used worldwide over thousands and thousands of years based on different, literally a base. They may be base 2 or base 60 or base 6 or base 10 or base 12 or base 8. So I wanted to explain a little really basic thing, because at the heart of the whole thing, that basically you come down to the symbolic number 1 or the 0. There's a really, really big symbolic theoretical concept of saying what happens when something goes from 0 into 1 and what happens when it goes from 1 into 2. It may sound like a ridiculous subject. Well, what is that? But think about, for example, and you take, for example, a sphere, let's say a bubble, and the bubble isn't moving at all. It's absolutely still. And it's a sphere. A little bit of vibration on that bubble, and it starts to flex a little bit, and then it begins to divide. In some circumstances, with the right vibration, it can actually divide. And next thing you know, that one single unit became 2. And along is created this symbol here with the polarity that in 3 dimensions is a toroid. So when 1 becomes 2, something happens. Now, modern science, they study the atom, and they have exactly the same kind of symbols that they use for the spin of the electrons and all the shapes of the different atoms express, and all the different geometry that is basic to all the elements of the whole universe. So this, going to the root of the matter, is a circle representation of the infinity. It's everything. Whatever it is, you don't have to describe it. You can't describe it. But whatever it is, conceptually, it's infinite. And what would happen on a massive scale where something absolutely still cleaves off in a similar manner as it happens all the way down to the single little elements and the single cells and so on that divide, and then things grow, and human beings and animals and so on grow. Amazing stuff. So this is really, really profound subject. Now, some of these ancient symbols basically is you have the circle, and the very diametric opposite of the circle is the square, because the square restricts the spin. The spin, you see how the symbol for the S, isn't that amazing? The snake, the spin, the serpent getting its tail going round and round and round, and it has a 3 dimension. A wave doesn't just look like this. It has it's 3-dimensional. So, what they come up with this so-called esoteric stuff was really a lot of profound conclusions regarding the basic stuff at the heart of everything, as above, so below. And it is working in the modern chemistry, the modern sciences. They see that certain vibrations express certain shapes and certain on and on and on. The shapes are important. The spin is important. The momentum is important. The motion is important, because without the motion, nothing precipitates. You see? So when you talk about sound healing and motion healing and being able to allow yourself to be touched by a beautiful harmonious vibration, then most likely most things in your body will also become harmonious if you expose yourself to it long enough. But these are very, very profound things that at the root of so-called occult, or so-called, it's not occult, it's just maybe one time it was. For most people it is. They go down, they can't even count their change at the Burger King. But this is profound stuff. This is how the universe works. This is how our body works. And it isn't, you know, people dismiss this kind of stuff and say, well, that doesn't mean anything. Well, no, if you talk to people who've been there, done that, done all the different kinds of math, they come down to the same basic stuff. Hermetica, Egypt, thousands of years old, the base system, the base 360 system. Long ago they knew that, thousands of years ago. Nothing new under the sun. The brain can express itself by figuring things out, by observing. And if you have your senses very awake, and you live and your body is efficiently managed, you're probably going to perceive a lot more. And that's what ancient people did. There were some people who lived, and even to this day, it's rare these days, but who lived such an extraordinary, unusually life. They purified their whole body, they meditate daily, they listened, they tuned themselves incredibly, and they had just experiences and understandings that it's just not typical in your PhD program. And what happens is, as things divide, that's how shapes take structure. That's how things grow. That's how, and there's patterns involved. And those patterns are, from the microcosm to the macrocosm, they're similar. They're very, very similar, like a fractal. I mean, there's different gauges of them in different potentials in certain spheres, you might say, of like an onion. Like there's relationships between the inside of an atom and the outside of the atom. There are various kinds of scales in the universe, and certain ones are predominant in living things and living beings, and that's why they called it sacred geometry for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. If you don't think it's sacred, you haven't studied some of the amazing beauty and how it works. I mean, it may be boring. You go to school and say, okay, draw that triangle over there and tell me how many degrees are in it, and so on. The kind of geometry I'm talking about goes way beyond that, and it's absolutely incredible. Now, there's, again, a few minutes that I have here. There's various functions. As this inbreeding, outbreeding goes on, there's division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. And basically, subtraction is there's almost like an additional relationship. Notice how there's four things here, and you have the four things, the polarity here, and the spin. And I'd like to show people a card from the tarot card that really says it quite well here. You see that symbol there? That's the spin. And the elements, the four, the splitting, the spin, the magician. How does the magician and the flower of life, the flowers and the rose, the patterns in the rose, the patterns in the flowers, and then you also have the square up here, the part of the manifesting in concrete walls. This is what science does. It's the magician, the people who understand how to work with forces and how the forces work. So thanks again for watching, and I'll be making a lot more videos. Some people have expressed interest in them, and I love to see other people's work as well.